Tonight, Yoshi shows the Xbox the way of the Spud. And it's a reunion for the HomeBrew Computer Club. Live from the TechTV studios in San Francisco, it's the Screensavers.
Hello and welcome to the Screensavers. I'm Kevin Rose.
And I'm Leo Laporte. I almost said I'm Patrick Norton. That just shows you where my head's at. I'm Leo Laporte. Patrick's not here today. No. Kevin filling in. This is going to be a show.
Awesome show.
This is the show you want to roll the TiVo, get the VCR going, get the burro in the back to start whatever it is that you need to do to take this show. That's my house. We have a really great show today. The HomeBrew Computer Club is where it all started. Before there was Windows, before there was Bill Gates, well, he was... But before there was the personal computer, there was the HomeBrew Computer Club, and out of it came everything we know and love today. We've got the original founders of the HomeBrew Computer Club, names you know, names you may not remember, here today to talk about the good old days of 1975. It's going to be amazing.
When we think about building computers now, we go out and buy a motherboard, we get the RAM and all that stuff. We take it in our garage. These guys were actually doing the soldering on the boards.
These guys built computers. Yes. They knew what they were doing.
That's awesome.
We have a great show today, also because Yoshi's going to show us a great mod,
cool mod.
And of course Jessica is in chat. What you doing up there?
Here's the thing, people. I've been trying to get into chat, but I think I've been having some JavaScript problems. So I'm not lying. I'm really trying to get in there. Yesterday I had a hard time, was locked out, but today, if I don't make it in, please, you guys, talk about, let's get nostalgic. Let's talk about, you know, our favorites of the past 20 years, and you know.
Yeah, your first computer is always fun.
Your first computer.
Do you remember your first computer, Jessica?
First.
What was your first computer?
I had a Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why the Mac is still in me, just kind of itching to get out. I'm still on a PC, but I kind of.
Were you in high school, junior high? When did you get that Mac?
I was in junior high school, and I made my mom type my papers.
That's great.
I didn't learn for a very long time how to type. I was lazy.
Your first computer, Kevin Rose?
The first one I actually bought that I owned myself was a 386 SX16.
I remember
a Packard Bell.
Yeah.
Remember the Packard Bells?
Oh, yeah.
They were crappy.
They were junk. Let's start with the tech news that caught our eye today. Sarah Lane has story number 1.
Yes, I do. Illegal music downloading could be making a comeback. The NPD, who's cheering? The NPD Group, an independent market research firm, reported on Friday that peer-to-peer usage was up 14% in November 2003 from September.
Wow.
Now, of course, the RIAA began its campaign of threatening individual file sharers with legal action in April of last year. What followed was 6 straight months of decline in file sharing. This is the first peak researchers have seen since last April. What do you think? Hype's dying down? People aren't scared anymore?
That is interesting.
You know, I'm thinking that, for me personally, I go back on there now because I found out what they're doing. They're going after the people that are sharing the files.
Right. So downloading seems to be okay.
Seems to be okay. You don't seem to, unless they're setting some kind of honeypots and things like that.
They may change the rules on you.
But I think that's what a lot of people did. They kind of sat back and say, okay, what's going on? Who are they catching? They found out who they're going after, and they say, well, I'm just not going to do that. I'll just download. I won't share anything. So.
I think what it underscores is it's just difficult to stop this stuff because people want to download music, to trade music, to make it easy to access. They don't want digital rights management. They don't want copy protection. And I think it's one of those things you're not going to ever be able to stop. You have to make it work for everybody, including the end users. And if you don't, they're going to go back to file sharing online. And that just shows you they're afraid of getting sued, but I think you're right. They're figuring, well, I'm willing to take the risk.
That and I think they might be jumping ship as well, because you think all these people were getting sued on Kazaa, and now they might jump into something else.
Emule or something.
Emule or something like that, and then into BitTorrent.
Yeah.
So,
interesting.
We'll see.
All right. Story number 2.
Story 2. Kodak has announced that they will stop selling traditional film cameras in the United States. With sales of digital cameras poised and ready to overtake film cameras for the first time this year, Kodak seems to be redefining itself in an effort to keep pace. The company will only continue to sell one-time use cameras and film. I don't remember the last time I saw anybody using a Kodak camera.
They kind of started, remember, well, you don't remember, but the Brownie was kind of one of the first.
I do remember
and then the
Instamatic.
You probably had an no, you wouldn't have had an Instamatic either.
I remember the flash cubes. Remember those
flash cubes?
Yeah, put on the top?
He doesn't remember.
I do too.
You weren't even alive.
He probably wasn't born.
I'm like 35.
The brownie was the little box you looked down into, and it came out like that. And that was like your parents weren't born when that came out. And then the Instamatic was the point and shoot one. You must have had it. Man, I tell you. I think it's very interesting. I'm kind of rooting for Kodak because it's so hard for an old line company to make that transition into the digital era. So many companies have failed. Here's Kodak. First thing they did, they went out and they bought Photo. They started to get digital. They make very good digital cameras. I think they kind of got it. They had to move with the times. And now they're saying, no more film cameras. That's a big shift.
Well, film is not dead, though, by no means.
By no means.
But
at that end, they were at the consumer end of the market. At
exactly.
the pro end, people still use film. Yep. Story 3.
Story 3. This is something that will excite all of us. The latest version of Mozilla is ready for you to download. Mozilla.org released final version 1.6, its suite of open source web tools that include a browser and an email client. You guys have it downloaded. Let's
Did you just say this is something that is going to excite all of us?
Why wouldn't it?
I love it when she talks like that.
She has really, over the years, you've been a good influence. She has really turned into one big geek.
She is a geek.
I like Mozilla.
This is something that, wow, the new Mozilla's here. The new Mozilla's here.
Listen, Jessica's excited.
Are you excited, Jessica?
Just partying over here, yeah.
Oh, man. I think we have totally
Why
transformed.
don't you show us how cool Mozilla
Kevin's
is, because I know it will be.
We like, well, the reason we like Mozilla is because, first of all, Internet Explorer is such a, it's not cool to like Internet Explorer.
Yeah.
It comes with Windows, big deal. And also, there are security issues. But Mozilla does things that Explorer doesn't do with the tabbed browsing. It's fast. It's the old Netscape. So it's kind of like the other guy, number 2.
Open source, which is always nice.
Absolutely.
And it's really lightweight now. They have an install option where it's browser only, and they can preload some of it so it can actually meet the speed of Internet Explorer.
That was always the advantage.
That was the big problem.
Yeah.
Remember the Netscape days? You fire up Netscape and you had to wait like 10, 15 seconds for it to fire up?
Because Microsoft builds IE into the operating system, of course it launches fast. It's always running.
So here's 1.6. Not a whole lot has changed as far as features, except when it comes to the mail client. The mail side of things, they've added some new functionality. But your standard browser, I mean, I can minimize, maximize, all kinds of cool stuff.
That's awesome. Wow.
I hear he does that at home as well. Yeah. So this is the they say the final version of the 1.0
A lot of bug
series.
fixes.
Yeah.
Not as many crashes. They say, it wasn't crash prone. I never had any crashes with Mozilla anyway.
Not very reliable.
But
best thing I think is pop-up stopping built into the browser, and it does a very good job.
That is really cool.
People hate pop-ups. It's so funny because when I sit down at a computer that somebody else has still got Internet Explorer running, and I forget about pop-ups, and you sit down. You poor people. There's pop-ups everywhere. You cannot surf everywhere. And I never see them anymore because of Mozilla and Safari on the Mac. So get Mozilla for that reason.
Mozilla's kind of like the indie radio station of the internet.
It's the hip, it's the cool thing to have.
It's hip and cool and it's different.
Although, I suppose that it's so mainstream now that we'll have to find some other browser.
It's like Green Day.
Yeah, it's like Green Day. It's like Good Charlotte. It's just they're mainstream.
That's good.
Yeah. Oh, see, I'm with it. I'm down with the homies or something.
He's going to like MTV.com before the show starts or something.
What is it?
He's getting this information from somewhere.
Who's this Avril Lavigne?
Avril Lavigne. I'm a skater boy. Now don't go anywhere just a little bit. We have 6 of the original members of the club that started it all, the first users group in the world, the HomeBrew Computer Club. They're back together again. Whoa, the stories are going to be flying. You stay right here. But first, after the break, does having to get up off the couch for those trivial tasks have you frustrated? Yoshi's going to help you achieve the next level of couch potato zen. Stay right here. Don't get up. Don't get up. Sit down.
Looking for more help from Pat and Leo? Keep up with the digital duo every day. Get news, help, tips, in-depth online at techtv.com/screensavers.
Welcome back. Here on TSS, we've modded just about everything we've come across. But now, laziness has set in. Yoshi is here to instruct us on the true way of the couch potato.
Laziness, or I say true use of the technology, because I mean, why get up if you don't have to? I mean, you got modded Xbox,
yes,
right?
Yes, I have all my games on the hard drive backed up.
You don't have to touch the CDs. You can put this in the closet and never have to even look at the darn thing.
No, you don't have to load anything.
So what I did is I was sitting there and poking at a thing with the stick because I didn't want to get up, and I decided...
You're that lazy, you didn't want to get up and turn on the Xbox.
Well, I might have had a few drinks, I'm not sure.
But putting them back.
What I decided, I'm like, hey, you know, you can get these little 12-volt, you know, radio transceivers for doing a garage door or something like that.
Right.
Why not put the transmitter in a wireless remote, a controller, and the receiver in the Xbox?
So you have your wireless controller, you push a button, and the Xbox turns on.
Yeah, well, let's see here.
That's cool.
If we can actually see the Xbox screen over the back of me here, this little guy right here is the button, and I'll turn it off.
The Logitech logo is the button, is what you mean?
And there it goes back on.
So it's turning on all wirelessly right there?
All wirelessly.
So how did you do this?
It was real easy. I took the guts of the controller out.
Okay.
Let's pop. I have another one here to kind of give an example here.
Now these are aftermarket controllers. They don't come with the Xbox.
Wireless. No, these do not come with the Xbox.
Okay.
You got to buy these ones separately. But I don't like wires coming across my living room, so I had these anyway. Let's try to get this apart without breaking it here.
So you open it up.
So we open it up. What I discovered is it has 2 rumble motors. For the sake of laziness, I'll get rid of one of them. I can live with half the rumble.
Okay.
So I put my controller here.
Because you needed some room to put the components inside.
You needed some room to get the receivers in there, so I just yanked the motor out.
Okay.
Easy enough. And there's a little cradle in there. You had to grind that out. That took, you know, a couple minutes. Still pretty simple.
Okay. So now you said you put the control in there. You mean this little device right here, the little
and then
remote.
I actually used the little buttons that are on there already. You can kind of see I have the wire here.
Right.
I just took the button off, put an extension wire on it, and ran it up here into the top of the box. If you see up here, that's that same button. And
Okay.
I just use these little micro wires that you can get from a like hobby stop. I got these from they're meant for model trains actually. They're connecting all your stuff on your little model trains, and they come apart and back on together.
All right, so you drilled a hole in the front here.
I drilled the hole. I picked that was very careful because I didn't want it to look modified. So I found a little piece of white rod, plastic rod that was the same size as that little dot in the logo.
Okay.
Drilled the hole for that, and then once I had the hole for that, then I figured out where to locate the switch. Epoxied it in place, soldered it on, and it was really pretty easy, actually.
Okay, so you close that up, and now you're done with the remote.
Now we're done with the remote.
What?
Now we got to put the receiver in the Xbox.
Okay.
And pop this off here without breaking anything.
Now we want to tell you, when you open up the Xbox like this, you're voiding your warranty.
You're voiding your warranty, and it can be dangerous. Because right now there's actually live power. Don't do this. I'm not that smart sometimes.
Especially after a few drinks.
Right here is the receiver. It's real small. I decided basically what I had to do is the EMI shielding that's around the edge here, I had to cut some of that away to mount it there. I'm not really worried about it. You can remove it all the way if you want. Honestly, I didn't even take it all the way apart. I just took the parts out I had to. I mounted a power supply over here on this side. That's Radio Shack, 12-volt power supply. I actually soldered that onto the AC in leads from the main power supply, so I don't have to have any separate power supply plugs coming in. I just want the one plug.
Right.
Keep it simple. And wired the power up to there, and I wired the momentary contacts from the receiver up to the power switch.
Nice.
So the regular power switch still works. It's just it now has a second power switch, which is the receiver.
So how long did this all take you, the entire process?
Entire process, it took a little longer because of writing the article, but the entire process should take you a little under about 30-40 minutes.
And what about the cost?
The cost, about $70.
$70, and you can have complete wireless. That's cool.
Complete wireless.
Are you going to do this to mine?
Sure.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Because then I can just sit back in the bed and just chill and push a button.
See, I play in bed when I'm going to sleep, and I don't want the stupid thing looping all night. You might want to turn it off right before you fall asleep.
Cool. Good deal. Excellent. For all the details on how you can follow Yoshi's path to couch nirvana, head on over to screensavers.com. You have an article there. There's a ton of pictures.
Article, good pictures. It'll
good
be real
pictures.
Easy to follow along.
So you can easily do that. And also, we want to remind you to register for next week's Screensavers LAN party powered by NVIDIA. Call for Duty was so popular, we're going to play it again. And some say it's the best World War II first-person shooter ever made. Shoot up your friends as an American, German, Russian, or a Brit. Go to our website and click on Join Our LAN Party to register for the links to download the game. And we'll see you next Thursday for the Screensavers LAN Party. Now, coming up after the break, we begin our trip down memory lane when Leo talks to the pioneers of computers as we know them today, the Homebrew Computer Club, when the Screensavers continues.
Wow, this is amazing. 29 years ago, if you were into computers, you weren't playing video games in your basement. You weren't surfing the web. You were definitely not downloading MP3s. If you were lucky, you were in a computer club. And perhaps the most famous was Silicon Valley's Homebrew Computer Club. Take a look.
It was the first place where it was hip to be square. Silicon Valley's Menlo Park in 1975. 32 people gathered in a garage, their intention to create a free place to experiment with computers. It was called the HomeBrew Club. Intel introduced its 8080 chip that year, and a small firm in Albuquerque announced a computer kit called the Altair. It was a clunky and unfriendly machine, but the HomeBrew Club saw the opportunity and the necessity to improve on the Altair. Members were engineers, machinists, physicians, and even ham radio enthusiasts. They were hobbyists who had little access to computers outside the club, but knew there was something amazing that would come out of these meetings. And they were right. It was the first Apple computer. Steve Wozniak demonstrated his first computer design there, the Apple I. Other projects included Lee Felsenstein's first alphanumeric video display adapter and Harry Garland's color graphic card, to name just a few. The rest is computer history. By 1978, Silicon Valley had become the focal point for the industry. In a time before Bill Gates and Microsoft ruled the world, there was the HomeBrew Club, the real activists and innovators who worked together to find a human purpose for the computer.
Joining us in the studio, this is what doing this show for the last 6 years has culminated in, has led up to. From the HomeBrew Computer Club, on my far right, the designer of the Osborne 1, co-inventor of the Sol 20, the penny whistle modem, and moderator of the HomeBrew Computer Club, Lee Felsenstein. Great to have you. Next to him, the man who founded what I didn't just found out is the oldest surviving microcomputer manufacturer. So it might be on life support, but it's still surviving. Started in 1974. Krememco, of course, Harry Garland, creator of the Dazzler. Next to Harry, the founder of Processor Technology Corp., co-inventor of the Sol 20, Bob Marsh. Great to have you, Bob. On my left, a man who designed the Macintosh, Canon CAD, and author of Human Interface, the Human Interface, wonderful book, Jeff Raskin. It's great. We've had you on before. Great to have you back. Next to him, firmware designer for the Apple I and systems designer for the Apple II, Alan Baum. Alan, welcome. And a man who prefers to be known as the creator of the Bay Area's first dial-a-joke, but also co-founder of Apple Computers, Steve Wozniak. Harry just knocked me over because he brought in this cover. This was really what changed the world in 1975. Not just with you guys, but Steve Ballmer came running into his and Bill Gates' dorm room and said, look at this, you got to see this. I mean, this really galvanized people. This is, of course, the cover of the 1975 Popular Electronics, where the Altair was announced, the world's first microcomputer kit. It's hard for us to imagine now, 29 years later, what it was like in 1975. Do you remember your first meeting, Steve, and seeing this for the first time?
Oh boy, it affected me so much. I had no idea what was going on when I went to the meeting. Alan, thank God, Alan invited me, told me it's a group of people interested in video terminals and stuff like that, and I'd been working on such things, and when I arrived, here's a picture of a computer, and they had one on display, and I said, microcomputers, what are these things? I was kind of scared.
What was the environment like before this? I mean, could you work with a computer? I mean, how could you have a computer?
Well, you couldn't. This,
you just couldn't.
Who knows?
You could be in the university.
You have a big mainframe, and you'd go to the priesthood with your punch cards and say, please, sir, may I have some time?
They'd gotten so big and complicated. I had dropped out of computers and was being a musician. As soon as I saw that cover, I said, computers are going to get interesting again, and ran out and got one.
Well, for me, my first year in college, I told my dad, I'm going to have a computer. I'm going to have the 4K Nova computer someday. And he said, costs as much as a house. That's when I said, I'll live in an apartment. And it was really that day, the first day of the HomeBrew Computer Club, that I realized, finally, I am going to have the computer I wanted.
Wow. Harry, is this your copy of the
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So you, too, were affected that way?
Oh, indeed, yes.
Did you actually buy this on the newsstand? What happened? What was your...
Well, at that time, I had been writing articles with Roger Mellon for Popular Electronics for a number of years.
Right. So this was your magazine,
and
really.
so that was my magazine, and we first discovered about this computer before it came out in Popular Electronics in the offices, the editorial offices of the magazine, because we were talking to them about another story.
Right.
And Les Solomon, who was one of the key people, the technical editor of Popular Electronics, said, gosh, why don't you take and interface some of your stuff to this new Altair computer? Maybe it'll help it sell. I'm really worried about this thing.
Did Ed Roberts bring it in? How did it get into the office there?
So Les Solomon actually had the Altair in his office in New York, and they were planning this big story. But it was a big risk for Popular Electronics. This was, a computer in a hobbyist magazine. Is this really going to make sense? And so he was interested in gathering some support and rallying some of his authors to support it.
Lee, do you remember when you first saw this cover? Was this just as important to you?
Yes, I believe that Bob Marsh showed it to me. This is the way I got magazines for free. But
what did Bob say? Do you remember?
Look at this.
Yeah. It's really interesting because, if I said look at this now, to most people they go, yeah, huh, so. But for each and every one of you, it was a galvanizing experience to see this.
Well, Bob said also, look at these pictures. It's clear this thing is a fake.
You can't do that.
And that meant that there was going to be a market for something. I mean, we all, I guess we were in this group because we knew and understood that people were going to want this.
Something's happening. Well, you started it, you were one of the founders of the group. You moderated the club.
From the fourth meeting on, yes. But I was on the first meeting.
But Gordon French
and Fred Moore
deserve the credit.
Called the meeting,
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I should say the late Fred Moore. He died a few years ago.
And what was their intent? What were they trying to do?
I think that they believed they were going to hold some sort of hardware class, but then the Altair came along and changed everything.
It changed from being a class to let's build one and play with one.
Well, not so much build one. The club meeting happened because the first, I think, serial number 8. Three. Oh, first unit, the review unit for the People's Computer Company, which was the only sort of new computer hobbyist publication there was, or like an underground paper. It was sent out for that, so everybody who had any connection with that publication got to see it, and we all couldn't figure out what to do with it, and eventually it wound up in Gordon French's garage. With the club convened around it, 32 people.
That was the first meeting at the garage. And were you all bowing down to it? Were you trying to? Was Steve trying to take it apart? What was going on in that?
I was too scared to say anything.
Really?
That was learning.
Were you kind of in awe of the other people there, or?
I didn't think I'd come back because I really had been spending my time designing calculators at Hewlett Packard, and I'd gotten out of computers. So I took home a data sheet. They passed out a data sheet. This was give out information. That was the theme of the club. Started the first night. Took home a data sheet on a microprocessor and said, oh my gosh, this is like the computers I used to design in high school. So I was back in business.
So was that kind of what everybody thought is let's make something of this? Let's do what? I mean, what were you going for?
I put it into business immediately.
You said this is a business.
Well, I didn't see it that way. I said, hey, this is going to be fun, interesting. Let's see what. Built one, and met this stockbroker who was paying something like $10,000 a month for time sharing. And I said, if I could write that program that he's using on this little machine, I could buy this machine and sell it to him for a few months' rent and make a lot of money.
Do you think, Alan, you guys were unique in seeing the potential of this? I mean, certainly the whole world didn't just jump up and say, hey, it's a computer.
No, I think we looked at it as this is coming, this critical mass is here.
Yeah.
We can do this now.
Yeah.
We couldn't do this before. A few people could do it before, but mostly companies, and now people can do it.
Meanwhile, IBM's saying the entire world market for computers is about 18, and we're not going to even get anywhere near this business, right? I mean, they didn't get it, right?
It was a little bit later in history than that.
Yeah.
That was disruptive to their business model.
So, to say the least. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about each of your first meetings, and then some of the things that came out of this, like this, Harry's Dazzler board. This is the fun story. We'll talk more when the Screensavers continues. Stay right here. We're taking a trip down memory lane with some people who've really changed the world. Lee Felsenstein, Harry Garland, Bob Marsh, Jeff Raskin, Alan Baum, and Steve Wozniak. 6 of the people, there were many, of course, who were involved in the HomeBrew Computer Club, one of the first computer. You said it wasn't the first computer club.
Well, I was talking about the People's Computer Center, which was sort of a drop-in center that had their own computer. So you're talking about how hard it was for anybody to play with a computer, but the People's Computer Center, you could drop in and use a computer and learn how to program.
Was it a microcomputer? I mean,
no. Oh no, they had a PDP-8.
As a PDP-8,
which was the first microcomputer.
It was a mini computer, really.
Mini computer,
yeah.
sorry.
And you were writing in Fortran. What were you?
They were teaching
Basic.
Focal, basic and Focal.
Basic and
The games
Focal.
are written in Basic.
Yeah. Now on this Altair, you were programming it how?
Binary.
You're programming.
That's the difference.
You're flipping switches.
Flipping
switches.
It's pretty painful.
And what could it do? Anything besides flash?
A computer's a computer.
No I/O.
We thought
It could blink lights.
It looks like an airplane cockpit, so it must be able to fly.
we had our expectations raised by Steve Dompier, whom I wish could have been here. That's who got that one of those, the serial number 3. In fact, he drove to Albuquerque to get it. So he was programming the minimum it could do, which was to make a sorting program. Right? So you can sort some numbers.
Right.
You can only read the numbers out by looking at the lights.
There's no paper tape.
No.
There's no terminal. There's no keyboard.
Nothing connected to it. Nothing.
Lights.
But he had a weather radio, little radio sitting on top of it. He was a pilot too, so, and he was listening to the weather radio, and he's ran the program, and he could hear it go zip, 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 which was the loop of the program getting shorter and shorter as it did the.
And it's coming out as RF, coming into the radio.
It's coming out as noise that gets into the radio and comes out as music. He did a music program in 30 hours.
No.
He brought it to the third meeting of the Homebrew Club, didn't tell anybody what was going to happen, set us up, pushed the button, and it started playing The Fool on the Hill, which was the first bit of sheet music you could find. And after that, it went into Daisy, Daisy, which for those of us who know, was the first song ever sung by a computer anywhere in 1960 by Max Matthews.
Yeah, and then HAL 9000 sang it a little later on.
That was what I was referring to,
yeah,
yes.
Right.
So that just opened our eyes. It's like, yes, we can actually do stuff that nobody would even dream of doing, because of course you get chased out if you tried to use a real computer for
He
this.
did it by flipping, so he must have had blisters on his fingers. I mean,
You got to do it over. The power failed, and he had to do it again. The power failed when he first put it in, and then he had to re-enter everything.
There's no memory. You don't turn the thing off because you're going to have to start over.
No flash.
Well, you have to realize there wasn't much memory, so there wasn't that much you could toggle in the beginning.
That's right.
It was 256 bytes.
Yeah.
256 bytes. So that's not all. Each switch is a bit, so that's not a whole lot of switching.
And now you can have a gigabyte in this.
In that. In a little thumb drive.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. Woz walks around with 2 gigabyte thumb drive hanging around his neck with all his software on it. Does it? But what's interesting is you guys still this is primitive. This is really primitive, even compared with the mini computers of the day. But you still saw something in there. Was it that it was on your desktop? That it was personal? What was it?
Yeah, I had the experience. In fact, I had the machine that you wanted. I had it because of my university connections. I had a Data General Nova in the back of my truck. I used to
Wait a
drive
minute.
around.
You had a Nova in the back of your truck?
Yeah.
It's too bad you didn't have a Nova. You could have a Nova in the back of your Nova.
And so I knew what it meant to have a little computer that you could take wherever you wanted, have it on your desk, wheel it. I hate to wheel it into
Why did you drive around with a Nova in the back of your truck?
Because it was there. And it was this funny. You go into a restaurant and you'd wheel in this.
No!
This computer.
You'd come in with your computer.
You come with your computer. You'd set up the computer alongside the table. You put the terminal on the table, and you could work while you're eating at the restaurant. We do it today, but
now we do it with laptops. Of course.
As soon as I saw this, I said, hey, now I can actually own one. I don't have to use universities.
Even though it was considerably primitive. Did you immediately start saying, what more? We got to put a video display in this.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you got to put a terminal in there. Tell me about the first video display card. Was that yours, Lee? Or?
Well, we have to break it up. Harry's was first with the video graphics card, the one you're holding.
This is the Dazzler.
The Dazzler.
Now, is this S100? This predates S100?
That is S100.
This is S100. Okay, so that's the original bus.
Yeah, right. We looked at what we could find in the documentation. Then finally we looked at the actual thing, the Altair, and we saw empty sockets.
Right.
And that was the future.
Right.
And Bob immediately started a company in his mind and to fill those
processor
sockets.
technology, yeah.
Altair made the grave mistake of including a manual with all the schematics.
Oh my.
Altair computer, and so it was a relatively trivial task to design equipment to run on there. Well, it's called the Altair bus before it was the S100.
But in a way,
it was Harry and I who invented the term S100.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah,
so
Kromemco, of course, was.
We had a bit too much to drink at a trade show in Atlantic City, and we decided
on the airplane going there.
Oh,
is there 100 pins on here? Is that why it's
there's 100 pins on there.
100 pins on there. What's the S stand for?
Standard.
Standard. I wanted to call it the Century Bus, but he figured that it would be better if it was a really dull name. It would take off better.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's S100. I like that very much. That's very good. Yeah.
So Bob and I had rented a garage, actually before this happened, and Bob was casting around for something to build. I was just being a design consultant. Suddenly there were things to design.
Yeah.
And it started out with a memory board, a ROM board, and just a serial parallel interface. But I had published a little mimeographed specification for what I called the Tom Swift terminal.
Oh, yeah.
Or a convivial cybernetic device, where I basically set down in specification form what a modular, bus-oriented personal computer could look like. I never built it. And in effect did the thinking about how do you couple video to this economically to get text out. And that set me up so that Bob, not too much later, said, we will pay you to design the Tom Swift terminal if you design it our way. And I did. And that became the Video Display Module, VDM1. And that was 64 characters per line, 16 lines. The screen flashed whenever you used it because the memory was so slow. But that basically was copied and improved by Radio Shack for the TRS-80, and it went on to become more or less the standard architecture of text display.
You said an interesting thing. He published the schematics. I mean, that was kind of, it was very open, and that was the spirit at the time, was a spirit of sharing, of openness. We'll show you how to do it. You do some stuff. Not everybody was thrilled about that. In fact, we're going to come back in just a bit and talk about a visit from a young man who was very unhappy, in fact, about the openness of the Homebrew Computer Club. We'll talk about that, a young man who went on to some big things when the Screensavers continue. Stay right here. (1975) Silicon Valley. It wasn't really that long ago in a lot of ways. It's recent history, and yet in a computer world, it's ancient history. We're talking about the Homebrew Computer Club, the club that in many ways started it all and was certainly fertile ground for what became the personal computer revolution. Not everybody's so happy about the free spirits at the Homebrew Computer Club, right? I hear a young Bill Gates wrote you a nasty letter, didn't he? What happened there? What's the story there? Harry, do you want to tell that story?
Sure. It was certainly a letter that he wrote, and at that time, the only significant software for the Altair computer was something called Altair Basic, which you got on paper tape. And if you were one of those fortunate few that had a RS-232 port and a teletype that could read paper tape, then you in fact could load this paper tape into your computer. It was the only way to do it. Maybe is exactly right. And this was sold by MITS, who made the Altair computer, but it was licensed from two young gentlemen, one who took off time from Harvard to write this, and his name, of course, was Bill Gates.
And the other, Paul Allen, we should give credit to since he owns his channel.
And Paul Allen was the other. And Paul Allen was the other.
Yeah, he did the work. He did the work.
Yeah, well, there's always a debate there about who did the work. We won't get into that. We won't get into that.
But one thing about an RS-2, if you have an RS-232 port and a teletype, this teletype has both a reader and a punch.
Yeah.
So you could put the paper tape in one side and get a copy of the paper tape out the other side.
Push the button. It's automatic.
Yes.
And this is probably the world's first case of software piracy.
It started then, and it hasn't stopped.
It hasn't stopped.
Did he come to the club, actually?
Yes. Yeah, he came, and he made a presentation, very impassioned, and it was really with a lot of foresight. He saw that if this were going to continue, where copies were made and the software manufacturer, the people who put the intellectual property into the software, didn't get the resources, there would be no more software.
Yeah.
So he made an impassioned plea to stop the copying of software.
But it was also part of what the revolution was all about, because once things are bits, it's pretty darn hard to hold on to them. And that's kind of what's happened. I mean, it's given us all this flexibility and power. Steve, you were saying that it didn't, these guys had some vision, but you didn't really share that?
There's product categories and this and that, and it's kind of logical. To me, I was so influenced. I'd had a computer bug when I was young.
Right.
Kept up a sideline hobby of designing projects of my own, but really came back into this club, and it was the types of people, their personalities, how they spoke, how they were excited about what these computers of the future could possibly lead to, that really inspired me to get back into it and try to contribute my stuff. And it was, a little bit of everyone here influenced me. It was, I mean, Harry's Kremko Dazzler. I don't even know if I saw it demoed, but hearing about color made me think, God, you want to put color in a computer, don't you?
Right.
And fortunately, 5 years before, I had designed and built a little tiny 8-bit, 256-byte computer. So I've been through the switches and lights, and you know what? Wanted to do something like more human, like our calculators at Hewlett-Packard. And the keyboard was really a key start. And luckily, I'd come in with a video terminal with a human keyboard. And I said, skip that airplane cockpit stuff.
Right.
You know, and then Lee and Bob came out with the processor technology Sol after the Apple I, a keyboard-based computer. Right. And that was the paradigm that continued. And then the Apple II came. And
so you just kind of ping-ponged off each other, standing on each other's shoulders, and this good idea, that good idea.
Well, it was like clicking into what this computer for people should finally look like was all starting right there in that club.
Did at any point spin off where people start saying, hey, maybe there's some money in this, I'm going to hold on and not give this stuff away?
Well,
besides Bill Gates.
Not me, the Apple I. Apple I came down to every meeting, and I thought, this is a club, everybody's talking sharing. We're passing out, I would write software, I wouldn't copyright it or something, just put it in the club newsletter. I would design the Apple I, passed out schematics so people could build their own cheaply.
There's an Apple I in the wooden case there, but you didn't come in with a case. Did you come in? You came in first with the schematics. Did you eventually build a board and bring that in?
Oh, eventually built the board. By the time I had the schematics, I had the board, and the board could be laid down with some wires on a keyboard. And my Sears TV, I'd carry it in. And it was, hey, it's the only output device you have for free. I couldn't afford a $400 processor either, so I had a $20 processor. But I could type in some hexadecimal codes that I had figured out how to get a program into it and show something on a screen step by step. Every few weeks, I'd bring in a demo and show it. He's like, developed a basic language, because, I could sniff the air. And here was Bill Gates and his BASIC, and I just sort of knew that somehow the world was going to go BASIC. And I'd never used BASIC, and I'd never written a computer language or really studied, except I had some mimeographed notes that Alan sent me when he was a student at MIT about computer interpreter design. So I wrote this BASIC and, showed it off every step of the way, adding some commands to it,
It must have been so exciting. It must have been so fun to see this every week, something new, something exciting.
Right. My job was to stand up there and not say anything, but keep other people from talking over each other. The process was one person at a time got 90 seconds maximum. This was varied, but 90 seconds maximum to say whatever they wanted. They had to stand up so people could identify them. That meant they knew who they wanted to talk to. That's your secondary information. I want to talk to this guy. And so just keep doing one at a time. And when the inevitable back and forth conversations and arguments started, I had to break it up. And I learned to use humor and body language and the pointer and so forth for that.
Lee won't say this about himself, but he was very funny, and I think that without the way that Lee ran those meetings, it never would have worked. In fact, I would go there half just to see you perform.
Bring Master Lee tells us that.
And nobody had to pay admission.
Darn it, you see, you had an opportunity. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, find out what, in the aftermath of the Homebrew Computer Club, what happened next when the Screensavers continue. Stay right here. Welcome back to the Screensavers. We're continuing our conversation with the legendary members of the Homebrew Computer Club. I called it a users group, but Woz pointed out quite correctly, you weren't users, you were creators. There was nothing, you couldn't just sit down and use somebody's computer. If you wanted to do it, you had to make it. Tell me about the Sol 20 a little bit, Bob. What was that all about?
Well, first of all, the idea for the company that I was with came in the very first computer meeting when I saw number 3 and saw the documentation and decided to build
I could do that.
It was only a few months later we decided to build our own computer.
Yeah.
And
you named it after Sol, which
we
is
named it after Les Solomon,
Yeah.
actually, the editor of Popular Electronics, because we figured by bribing him that way,
he put it in the cover.
Make sure it got on, and it actually worked. So it was one of our successes. We were probably a year late. In the break, we were saying that a year was like a lifetime, and we were actually a year late delivering those computers. It wasn't until about the same time as the Apple II that the Sol 20 actually came out. But it was one of the very first computers that was completely integrated in one package, so that if you had the monitor on top of the TV, and it had its built-in keyboard memory, everything in there, you could just plunk it down on your desk and start using it. That is assuming you knew how to program.
Yeah, I didn't realize.
Or you had a prior to paper tape.
I didn't realize the connection because I was also working for Les and writing for Popular Electronics. But would you realize that we need a new computer club? I mean, things have gotten so static. And even a Mac has gotten hard to use. They're complicated.
Right.
One of the reasons why I like the little machines is that the big machines have gotten too complicated to use. And now,
but you've always said that.
Yeah, and I still say it.
You're still saying it.
He's still right.
Absolutely.
And he's still right. And he's still right. Now, Harry, you started Krememco.
Yes.
And now, at the beginning, I said it's still going. It's going concern still?
Yes, although we sold it to a large company, so
Right.
it's been acquired and it's kind of lost some of its identity, but it's still a going concern.
I remember those Krememco's S100s. Oh, those beautiful cages. Those were great. Those were great computers. Lee is still, I know, doing a lot with computers. Still the comic, but also still spreading the computer gospel everywhere around the world.
Yeah, I see an industry that will develop in the third world and the developing world, extending the telecommunication system through wireless, called last kilometer.
Right.
The systems can be built using open source software and 802.11 that are cheap enough so that the people who are using them can actually own them and operate them. And that puts them not only into the local telecommunications grid, but also out onto the internet, because many of them will have relatives and friends living around the world. And hooking them up, they know they need it, and it's going to be fun doing it.
Steve is doing wireless too, I know. You're interested in the wireless end. We shan't mention
well,
what
a lot
you're
of the world's doing wireless these days.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So you're still in the computer industry, would you say? I love baiting him.
I wouldn't say it. I'm in. There's other industries related.
So after the Apple I, the Apple II, and of course the world changed. I mean, that really kind of commercialized the thing and took off like crazy. Did that change it for you guys? You feel like that? Oh no, it's not ours anymore. It's the world's. Or did you?
Well, we started out too. The early products came with a computer and a programming language, just like the ones at the hobby computers
Not so
at the
different.
club. Yeah. And somebody had to sit down and read a little book and learn. Oh, I can write a couple simple programs. We made it very simple back in those days. But then, if you had a need, you fulfilled it by writing a program.
Right.
Today, you're told, here's what your needs are and here's what the solutions are, and you buy it from us. And
Alan, when you were working on it, did you kind of know that this is how important this was and what a big revolution this was?
No, I don't think I did. I didn't see that. I just saw it as sort of instant gratification.
Because you'd come from designing big computers.
And I ended up there too.
Yeah.
Still doing it.
And as we mentioned, Jeff is still fighting the fight to make these darn things a little bit easier to use.
But at least people are still using Macintoshes. I can't believe it. It's been 25 years since they were released, and people are still using Macintosh.
Well,
it's wonderful.
Speaking for myself, we love our Macintoshes. And thank you, all of you, for the difference that you made. You changed the world. We are all very grateful to the Homebrew Computer Club. I know you guys are doing it for fun and because you loved it, but as beneficiaries of your work, we really thank you. It was really an amazing revolution that started in 1975 in Menlo Park. Stay where you are. We're going to come back, say goodbye when the Screensavers continue. You know, I thought I'd bring these young guys in here with us old guys in the background. What year were you born?
77.
Kevin Rose. 77?
Oh, 72.
So you can see that these guys, he was a baby. He wasn't even born when all this began. But you were saying about Marsh that what Yoshi's doing is not so very different.
No, I think he should get the Homebrew Club Medal of Honor for his work on
For the mods.
That was exactly the spirit
I
of
think we
what
have a quorum here and should vote on that.
I can't do the same as Lee, though. I have to say.
I'll propose him for the Strip Phillips Screw Award for finding a use for something previously thought useless. Now, that's what I propose.
The Strip Phillips Screw Award. Do you have it mounted on a little plaque there or anything like
I'm
that?
sure
You
we can arrange that.
Well, talking about 70s, it was in 1966 that I built my first graphic input device.
Wow. Wow. You know, it's really, which was a mouse-like thing? Or?
It was built on a big drawing board, and it had crossed wires and 10-turn pots and things.
Yeah.
But I needed to input. I wanted to input music.
Bob was saying we're kind of stagnated. Nothing great's happened in 12 years or so.
Evolutionary is what I said.
Evolutionary. Where's the next big thing coming from? Anybody? Suggestion?
From me, of course.
Jeff Raskin. Does he have an award for that, Lee Felsenstein?
No, Raskin's his own category.
Well, there's so many other people who are part of the Homebrew Club, and I wish we could have gotten you all on the stage. For those who are watching at home, we'll do this again. You come back. We want you all, right? And Gordon and everybody else should come back, and we'll do this again because it's really fun to have you. Pretty neat, huh?
It's cool stuff.
Isn't it amazing?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. We thank you for joining us on this edition of the Screensavers. Kevin Rose, Yoshi, we're going to be back next week. We got a great week of shows, but it's just nice once in a while to take a trip back in time through memory lane with Lee Felsenstein and Harry Garland, and I got to get everybody in right order. Bob Marsh, Jeff Raskin, Alan Baum and Steve Wozniak, thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next time on The Screensavers. Night-night.